Amanda Waller's origin story is finally told, and wow, as much as we would like to villainize her, she's kind of all of us in one sense. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to Essential Issues Weekly, where I talk about DC Comics 1 week after their release on the Ultra tier of the DC Universe Infinite subscription service. In each installment, I pick an assortment of comics to talk about as a DC fan and also explore what, if anything, they have to say about the essential issues of real life. Now, warning, full spoilers for everything that I talk about. Be aware this is your first and only warning that many spoilers lie ahead. Right now, we're taking a look at comics originally released to the Ultra tier on August 21st and originally published on July 24th, 2024. The first of those, I'm just going to make some brief comments about a couple of comics and spend most of my time on the third one. But Absolute Power Task Force VII, number 2 out of 7. It's away from the Shazam kind of family now and getting into what's going on with the Doom Patrol and Aquaman. Really, this the Absolute Power Task Force 7 miniseries. This is the second of 7 issues. It seems kind of like an expansion of the main story, just kind of filling in some details about what's going on in the wider world. And so I'm really appreciating it as kind of like an accompaniment to the main Absolute Power issues, at least with this issue. I'm glad, that it's not all focusing on the Shazam family. So I appreciate what it's doing, filling in some gaps. I guess that's all I'll really say about that. Green Arrow 14. Now, of course, I had my eye on this because Oliver Queen made the shocking decision to side with Amanda Waller, and he does not seem to be brain controlled. He doesn't seem to be have anything leveraged against him by Amanda Waller. Like, he philosophically is in agreement with Amanda, that we have every reason to think that that is actually the case. Very surprising. But what's cool and kind of paying off in Green Arrow 14 is the Green Arrow family that had been built up over the course of the first, 12 issues of this most recent series, now are working together in his absence to figure out, why did Ollie do this? What is going on? How can we, as like these unpowered members of the superhero community who are not really affected at all by what Amanda Waller has done in taking away the superpowers of all other superpowered beings, how can we now stand against Waller and maybe be the solution that's going to save the day? So, I mean, it's cool to have that kind of focus, that kind of angle here. It's kind of like when something happens with the Justice League and Batman is overlooked by the villain of the day because he's like, oh, he's just a human or whatever, and then we get a chance to see how cool Batman is. And so I'm seeing all the pieces in place for that to be happening with the Green Arrow family, in addition to just continuing to acquaint me with who they are and their relationships with each other. And so, yeah, I'm definitely on board with what's happening in Green Arrow right now, which is very surprising because it's not normally a book or a character that I've really felt drawn to, but I'm happy to say, because I've long wanted to really be interested in Green Arrow, I'm happy to say that I am interested in this book right now. Okay, but here's what I'm most interested in this week. Absolute Power Origins, number 1 of 3, which I think might be the first time that Amanda Waller's origin was her origin story was definitively told. I know that there's been some details about the fact that her drive, her motivation comes out of tragic family loss, but I'm not sure if it's ever been given this much detail before, and I really appreciated getting this introduction, this proper introduction to who she is and how she became the woman that she is today. Probably the main part of Amanda's story involves the tragic loss of her daughter, who was raped and killed by a criminal named Candyman, and shortly after that, her husband Joe went out to basically bring about vigilante justice and kill Candyman because the police were saying, we can't know for sure if this is the guy who's wearing a mask and stuff like that, but evidently from Amanda's perspective, everyone, quote unquote, knows that this is the guy who did it, and so why haven't they done something? Well, her husband Joe goes out and does something. But in the process, although he does shoot and kill Candyman, he also comes out of it being shot himself and dying as a result. And the way the police are seeing the way that played out is that her husband murdered this man. And so she observes, talking to the law enforcement that, if my husband, if you say he died committing a crime, he won't get his life insurance. And so that's what happened. She was left not only without a daughter and her husband, but without the benefits of life insurance and needing to raise kids now on her own. And the detective she's talking to says, I don't know what to tell you. He should have thought of that before he took the law into his own hands. And of course, as readers, we look at this, I think most of us probably do, and I think we're meant to look at this and say, this is not justice. This is not right that this happened to her husband. When the justice system failed and he had to take it upon himself to bring about justice. But there's all kinds of complexities in this that I think the responsible reader has to ask themselves. Okay, was it actually justice or was it revenge? We have to talk about the difference between those two things. And is it justifiable when the law, the systems of government fail to bring about justice? Is it then, we would say, morally justifiable to bring about that justice on our own terms, by our own hands? Because really, all man-made laws are created based on some kind of a higher morality that is in mind that the laws are meant to enforce. I don't think many people actually think of societal laws, human governmental laws themselves as being the moral authority. They are rather intended to carry out certain kind of controls and repercussions when the moral law that they are meant to serve is being violated. So I think there's a really strong argument for saying that, yes, there is a moral law that takes priority over governmental or societal laws. But does that mean we are then justified in taking matters into our own hands to bring about justice when the human justice system fails? When we are humans ourselves, are we not setting ourselves up for the same possibility of our own justice that we try to bring about being imperfect or flawed or doing lots of harm in addition to hopefully achieving some measure of good? And this really kind of is at the heart of Amanda's shift, of her change. We see a narration of her thoughts come up at this point when she realizes that the justice system has utterly failed their daughter, her husband, and now her family not getting the life insurance from his death. She says, it was at that exact moment I realized I could do something other people couldn't. She says, I could see the future. Now, of course, she doesn't have a superpower, but she's written as such a brilliant strategist, such a brilliant thinker and preparer. She has contingencies upon contingencies. And so from a narrative standpoint, man, you kind of feel that, I think. It's like, yeah, I mean, she is such a thinker. I mean, she thinks so far ahead that you can almost believe that she can see the future. But she's not actually a metahuman. She can't actually see the future. But, I mean, does she actually believe that? I don't think so. Or maybe she does. Maybe she's just so impassioned in that moment that she's like, I can see what no one else can see. And that is the problem. That's the problem with taking the law into our own hands, is we all think in those moments. And I'm talking about taking kind of matters into our own hands outside of like being vigilantes. Sometimes, we just kind of like have these little petty forms of justice. Maybe we give someone the cold shoulder because we think that's what they deserve, and they have gotten away with something that they shouldn't have gotten away with, some behavior toward us or toward those that we care about, and there's no repercussions for them. And so we try in our anger to bring about a little petty repercussion, like giving them the cold shoulder or some kind of other cold treatment or unfavorable treatment in some way. That is on some kind of conscious or subconscious level our desire to bring about justice, maybe in our minds, or revenge is really much more what it is. But we in those moments are thinking on some level that we have the superior perspective. We have the right perspective that other people are not seeing, and therefore that gives us the right morally to intervene because our perspective is the superior one, the right one. But everyone thinks that their perspective is the right one. Otherwise, they wouldn't be holding the perspective that they do. So that is the major flaw and the really anger and grief fueled problem and misstep that Amanda Waller takes at this moment that then seems to set her on the path that she is on from this point forward and really makes her into the woman and the force, the antagonist in the DC universe that she is today. And I love this being brought out because it does not make me say, oh, she's right, and I guess she's right after all. No, I don't think it's meant to do that. But I think it's meant, a character like this, a moment like this, to hopefully give us a heads up that, ooh, man, I can relate to her. Now, what does that say? That tips me off that, you know what, if I'm not careful, I can go down this road too. And that road for her is a dark one. She ends up volunteering for a man running for Congress, and because of his stance on metahumans, vigilantes, that kind of thing. And she doesn't take any pay for it. She works longer and harder than anybody else. She just seems like such a strong supporter, and it gives the impression during this time that she really just wants to do some good and do it from a good-hearted place. And she's really loved and appreciated by the councilman running for Congress and his wife. They really seem to become close and affectionate toward each other, affection that they have for her and she seems to have for them, but at the end of the day, it's all false compared to what she really cares about. In order to get Collins elected, she sets up his competition with a scenario like a prostitute or someone willing to engage in illicit behavior with him and get it on film, so that they could use it against him and basically destroy him publicly. And Collins doesn't want to play dirty like that. He's like, I've got principles. And she's like, really? You've got principles? She says, you're the reason that people like Candyman ran these streets, taking a cut of his action just to look the other way. And she had seen the police files. It's something that he kind of buried from his past. And she's ready to bring this up and destroy him if he won't take what she has offered him to destroy his opponent. So she's just ready to destroy everybody to get what she wants, which is someone that is going to enact laws that will put limitations in some way on vigilantes and metahumans. She will invest relationally with people, but ultimately to serve her own purposes. I mean, she had me fooled as a writer. I knew that she was going to take a dark turn. I just didn't know she'd taken as dark a turn this early. But I was like, oh, wow, she's already in this really dark place where she's just ready to destroy anybody, no matter if it seems like she really cares about them, to get what she wants. And that may arguably even include her own kids. Now, destroy would be too strong of a word. She's not actually willing consciously to destroy her children. She still has 2 sons and a daughter to care for. And in a scene where her daughter needs help with her homework, and Amanda's like, I can't help. I've got too much going on. And she's like, you don't even care. What are you doing? And Amanda's response is, I'm doing this for you. All this working, all this extra stuff, all these hours that I'm putting in that's taking me away from being a parent to you, essentially. I'm doing this for you. And there's complexity here again. You know, she says, I know it doesn't feel like it, but I'm doing this for you. And there are legitimate times where, just speaking as a dad, we make choices that our kids don't like, and it is for their good. What's complex about that is there are times where we can make choices that are really for us, but we rationalize them in our minds and maybe to our kids that these choices are for them and for their benefit. And that, as a parent, is just a hard thing to sort through, and you make some mistakes now and then. And so them just bringing that element here is something also I really appreciated, because it's another reminder, Pater, watch out. You could go down, of course, not in this dramatic, overly dramatic, epic scale level of villainy that Amanda Waller's gone down. It seems very unlikely that you're headed down that path, but don't let that blind you to the less obvious ways that you can go down a path like Amanda Waller. Yeah. Anyway, it wasn't until just before I started recording that I looked again and realized, oh, this is part 1 of 3. I would totally have accepted this as just a one-shot that's supporting the bigger story of Absolute Origins, but we get 2 more issues that are going to delve into the origins of Amanda Waller, and for that reason, I have selected the orange ring this week, representing my sense of greed, my hunger for more of the backstory of Amanda Waller. Just am finding it really, really engaging, and in some sad ways also relatable. Really, really worthwhile so far for me. And yeah, I think those are all of my thoughts on comic books for now. But I would love to get your thoughts on what books this week have gotten your attention and why. You can leave those thoughts and reactions in the comments below. As always, please check out christiangeekcentral.com. There's a ton of stuff made for you there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services.